What's going on, Server Squad? If you're after a really nice build for kind of doing those hive missions, especially the mega hive as such, then stay tuned. That's coming up next.
Pew, 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 pew. Whee.
Welcome back, all you guys and girls. Yeah, so here's the character I play most. I think he's probably one of the most fun characters in the game. But now that we're at those hive missions, you just don't want to lose your character that you want the actual gear for. Because once they're out, and if you complete it with another one, then you're going to get it for them instead. So pretty much you've got to make it so that your character is going to survive. So let's see what we've got in store, shall we? Right, so if you have a little look at those stats, what I've actually tried to do is make it so that you've got quite a lot of survivability in your build, but that I offset it with some damage from other places. So what I'll do with this build is I'll show you a couple of choices that you can actually take to change it around. So for example, if you wanted more heroic rating, you wanted a little bit less defense, and you wanted a little bit more melee, you can make that happen. That's not a problem. But I'll go over the stats and the perks and such that you'll need, and hopefully you'll enjoy this, and hopefully it'll help you out in those hive missions. I'd say this should be fine up until about +5. I wouldn't go over that, but then again I probably wouldn't go over that in a hive mission anyway. There doesn't really seem to be much point. I can't see the exotics actually dropping anymore from the higher missions, so as long as your gear is leveled up enough and you're doing +5 or just under, you should be fine with this build. So first off, just up here, and this one is really good. It's the Faultless Pulse Van Braces. So as you can see here, it does 57.6% chance melee critical attacks trigger a stun damage explosion. The second one is signature attacks deal particle damage, dispersing PIM particles on every impact. Now that's the main thing, that middle one right there. You want your signature move to hit hard, and you want it to have that PIM effect. That's really good in this game. I'd say it's one of the best ones in the game, if not the best currently. The third one, and this one is really good for this build. What it is, it's 250% increased willpower recovery when Odin Force is active. Now I think in one of the skill trees you get one that gives you a little bit of health back as well, so what we're doing is we're kind of doubling up, or even more so than that, when you press that right trigger in on the Xbox. I'm not sure what it'll be on PC, but basically when you're activating your Odin Force, you're going to be regenning all of your health on those signature hits. So even if you do get knocked for 6 and you're down to half health, you can just regen it yourself just by going in with the Odin Force attacks with the signature move. Now just down here we have this one here, and it's the Adept Buff Grip. Now this is one of the best things I've actually found in this game, to be perfectly honest. It doesn't look amazing. Proficiency, resolve, resilience. Probably not the stats you're actually looking for, to be fair, but they work. And the reason they work is because if you have a little look, this is a negative effect because obviously it's gamma, and up here is a positive effect. So as long as they're suffering from that gamma effect, when you hit them with the signature move as such, you will be getting extra damage once the PIM actually affects them. But also, if you have a look here, Adept Buff. Near enough 40% chance hitting an enemy with a ranged critical attack grants a damage buff. That is huge, absolutely huge. Second one, like I said, you're just using it for the negative effect. And the third one, Expert Buff, 55.6% chance defeating an enemy with a ranged critical attack grants a damage buff. Because of this item right here, you are going to have damage buff at least 80% of the time. It will almost always be up. It's really good. Now this one right here, you can definitely get better. I've mainly used this just because it kind of offset everything a little bit, and it had kind of the stats that I was after with the resilience, might and resolve. They seem to kind of sort out my build as such and make it so that I just didn't die. If you could find something that had a Jarvis shield or something in particular that you liked more, or even if you wanted different stats, go for it. This is not the best one in the game. It's just one I've put on for the moment because it seemed kind of ran the build off very well. Now down here, and this one is a really, really nice belt. Proficiency, resolve and might. So as you can see, we don't actually have too much valor in the build. If you wanted to chuck some in, you very well could, but I would recommend keeping this kind of a build, and then if you wanted to, just chuck it over on your ISO. So if you have a little look here, Apex Blitz, 16.3% increased damage from signature skills. Lethal Protection, near enough 20% chance defeating enemies grants a defense buff. That is really, really good, and it's why we've got this belt on. And if you have a little look here, Rampage Protection, defeat 3 enemies in rapid succession to grant a defense buff. Between this one here and between this one here, I would say you almost always have a buff on. Very, very rare that you don't, and you've almost always got defense and an attack buff. It makes you very tanky. It makes you still hit hard even though your stats are not as high as some of the other builds. If you wanted to chuck on more melee, you can easily do it because we haven't got actually melee ISOs on or valor, so you could quite easily get more damage out. If you were doing a lower hive or something that you're not struggling with whatsoever, you can absolutely power through it by putting the melee damage or the valor damage all the way up. But like I said, this one here and this one here tends to make this build really powerful. Now I have actually got one that makes it so that you can smash through the content faster, and that is this one right here, the Girdle of the Storm. And that's mainly because it's got that first one, 18.8% chance when defeating enemies to temporarily activate a Tachyon Surge status damage 50% extra while active. This one's really strong. It's one of my favourite belts in the game, and as soon as I can actually get this up here to be cosmic, that will be the one that I'll be wearing constantly, because it also gives 24% extra attack to cosmic damage. It's huge, it's really good. I've not been able to get one for that top bit. As soon as I can, this is going to be my go-to belt. But if you did want to run it faster, and if you do have one of these belts and you're not dying or anything such as that, chuck it on. Now over here, I find that this one, not that one there, Tactigon, is definitely best. But if you did want to change it up and you did want to put it onto this one, it basically means that you get 4% extra to your damage buff. So especially if you're using that other one, the other one down here, the Girdle of the Storm, you might want to swap this one out for the Sacred Nornstone just to have the additional time factor on your damage buffs. It's completely your choice, depending on how tanky you want to be. Now down here, and I'll show you why I've got these on, because they're a bit of a strange choice to be perfectly honest, but they kind of round it off. So you've got proficiency, which is good for the crits, resilience and might, and just down here, proficiency and resolve. So not the best stats, but not bad. Pretty good for tankiness, and you're going to be getting those crits off, which is nice. But if you notice, both of them have Apex Breaker on. So this has 11.3% extra damage signature, and this one has 10.6. Along with this belt over here, you've got over 37% damage to the signature attack. That's really good. So it means even though your melee damage is nowhere near as high as it could be, you can easily get over 2000 if you want, but you don't actually need to. If you're trying to have that survivability and a bit of tankiness about yourself, this way you've got 16,500 health, 33% armor. You're going to be hitting hard with that because you've got the positive and the negative effect, and you're going to be getting the buffs up for the defense, and you're going to be getting the buffs up for the attack, and also your signature is amplified by both of these and this one over here. If you wanted to swap these out and you wanted to chuck straight on to the might, just for the extra damage, you would lose a lot of defense rating, but if you're powering through lower content, that is definitely an option. And again, if you want to swap one of them out and you want to go straight for Valor, look at the difference of that. Just putting one on takes it up to over 4,000. So it's completely your choice. Like I said, there's a lot of things you can do with this build. The main thing is pretty much having this one, this one, this one down here, and then swap these out for whatever you actually want to do with your build. Right, so going over the skills as such, if you have a little look at the specialty, just over here, I've taken the first one, which is nearby teammates receive a temporary damage boost, and just down here, increase critical attack damage by 25%. It's just to give everyone a little bit of extra damage to actually massacre all of your foes. It works really well with this build. Over this side, and what you'll want is definitely this one here, because it just gives you that little bit of edge where you can proc it 3 times. If you did want to put it onto this one, you very well could, to be perfectly honest, because I actually really enjoy this one, but being able to use it more times seems to work in your favour in this. It still does quite a fair bit of damage once you've got those boosts on, especially if you've got that cosmic belt. Just over this side, we've got God Blast inflicts 15% increased normal and stun damage against shocked enemies, which is always nice. If you didn't want to use that, you could quite easily come down to this one and try and have it so that you get 5% of assault heroic energy back. Now over on the ultimate heroic, I find definitely, if you're trying to survive, chuck on this one for the regen. If you feel like you're tanky enough and you don't really worry about dying, then you'll probably want to come straight to this one just here, and that will be your burning effect, which is really nice area effect and kind of does a little bit of extra added dot damage. Over on this side, and I prefer this one best by a mile, automatically activates Odin Forced Overcharge as soon as you come back from your ultimate. It's really nice, does the job, gives you the extra damage. Over on the mastery, and if you have a little look, we've got increases melee stun damage by 15%, because obviously we're using that first perk where we get the stun effect anyway. Just down here, increased damage from combo finishers by 25%. And just over here, we've got performing a takedown spawns a heroic orb. Now I find that best. A lot of times I was using this one just up here. Performing a takedown spawns a regen pack, but you don't need it with this build in the slightest. So you get this one and you've got a lot more chance of having your ultimates up. Now this one's one of the main ones. For your ranged one, what you want to put on is Impact Explosion. Hold RT to change Tornado Throw and cause the hammer to spawn a series of lightning explosions. From what I can tell, these explosions in themselves can actually proc the damage buff as such. So they're really worth doing. What I tend to do is find as many people as I can while I'm flying in the air, throw this down, get the proc off, and then hold RT to actually do the secondary, and a lot of times you'll get that damage buff straight up. This one is definitely worth invested in, and it's just to make sure that your hammer actually flies out and flies back to you in a really good time as such. Without this, I found that it was really just too slow. It was just far too slow. And over on the right hand side here, I prefer this one. Pick whatever you want, but I would say this one is the best one by a mile. Just over on the intrinsic ability, if you'll have a look, I've picked this middle one. Dealing damage while Odin Force is active will recover 1.2% willpower per hit. So like I said, this is where you want to get your regen back from. Even if you're at half health or lower, go in with your signature attack, hold your right trigger down to activate the Odin Force, and you will get full energy back. Just over here, and we are going to go straight to this one. Reduce the overall energy cost of using the intrinsic Odin Force ability by 10%. You're going to be using that basically as much as you can, especially for the signature move. And in the middle here, I like the very last one. Takedowns grant 30 points of intrinsic Odin Force energy. Like I said, you're trying to get that energy up as much as possible. Just over on the right hand side here, overcharge specialization. When overcharged, surrounding enemies will be intermittently struck by lightning. That one's really good for this build. And with this one, if you're going in tanky and you're trying some of the harder hives and you do not want to die, this is the one you want to put on your build. Definitely stick with this one. Increases damage resistance by 50% when Odin Force is overcharged, and you're overcharged quite a bit to be fair. Just over here, and I go straight for the last one, increase all damage by 15% when Odin Force is overcharged again. Right guys and girls, so hopefully you've enjoyed that and hopefully it helps you out a little bit. Like I said, it's a really solid all-round build and you can kind of change it up and chop it about a little bit if you wanted to tweak it to your own liking. What I'm going to do, I'm going to chuck on a little bit of gameplay to kind of show you how it works in the hive, and hopefully this will be something that you'll enjoy and maybe give it a little whirl yourself. As always, if you've liked the content, then why not hit that like button, as it really helps the channel out, and why not hit that subscribe and bell icon if you want to see more content from me on all the latest and greatest gaming on Xbox and soon Xbox Series X. As always, take care, I'll see you on next day.